2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, and we are continuing when, what was it, Pets Attack or Animals Attack? I don't know.
Animals Attack.
All kinds of things now. While I brought to the table a film from good old Wisconsin. Film by Bert Gordon, one of his later films in the 70s. And he actually comes from the School of Corman, believe it or not. But he does have a nickname, and it does have a little bit to do with his initials. He is technically referred to as Mr. Big. And there's another reason why he's referred to as Mr. Big, as I'm sure you all found out while watching this movie. And if you've ever seen any other films of his, he always either does things really, really big or really, really small. So, now, I do have to say that this film is loosely based on an H.G. Wells short novel, and I guess it has to do with the animal part. There is a film that Bert Gordon actually did before this called Village of the Giants that kind of sort of actually did something from this short film as well. But this one actually made some money for American International, which started a chain of films dealing with the H.G. Wells concept in the 70s. So this film was filmed in 1976. Stars a number of people. Let me bring up IMDb real fast here. Food of the Gods. Okay. Oh, it has a 4.6 out of 10 rating on IMDb.
Woo. How many webcam is 1 point? A 0.1 higher.
Yeah, I guess Marjo Gortner is our main dude. Believe it or not, Marjo Gortner was, in fact, in a Roger Corman film called Star Crash before this. And we got Pamela Franklin, Ralph Meeker, among many others. So what IMDb says about the film is this. A group of friends travel to a remote Canadian island to hunt, only to be attacked by giant killer animals which have populated the place. So, first impressions, everyone. Heading over to you, Jake. Was this a first-time watch for you?
Yes, this was definitely a first time. I'm not even sure I'd heard of the film before. I mean, maybe I'd heard about it vaguely. I definitely had not seen it. It's an interesting watch. I could see how it had its charms, but it was also cheesy as hell and had some interesting moments, both good and bad. But overall, it was a decent first watch.
Alrighty, is that pretty much it for you then?
Yeah.
Alrighty, heading over to you, Dustin. Was this a first-time watch for you?
No, so this actually came in Shout Factory's 2-pack with Frogs, which is one of my favorite movies. And when I picked that up many years ago, I saw this for the first time as part of that 2-pack. And I think that we actually have that 2-pack because of the Roger Corman connection. Because Shout Factory got a bunch of his stuff that was like licensed through him a while ago. And a lot of those 2-packs were movies like kind of in that block of stuff. I think they had even been on DVD in like the same like combinations before too. So Shout Factory just put them out on Blu-ray as an upgrade to the DVDs. And so anyway, I saw this years ago when I first picked that up, and it's a much better movie than you'd expect it to be. A lot of the effects are really dated. Like, you can tell that those things are not in the same place. Like, to put it politely. But overall, it does work pretty well, and it's an effective monster movie. I haven't read the H.G. Wells story, so I don't know what kind of accuracy to the story. It sounds like not a whole lot is there. But as just a standalone film and its own thing, it is pretty good, and I do like, I think, the most how it's not really explained. It was just, well, this happened, and we don't know where this stuff is from. But I'm sure we'll get into that. And so that's what I remember most about it. So
technically, the explanation was we are just God-given folks, and we just finally got our prayers answered.
That's not that doesn't count.
Well, it doesn't count to us, but according to Mrs. Skinner, it counts a whole hell of a lot. So,
well, what was the line? Like, the only thing incredible is your stupidity, somebody says to her. They were completely correct.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Tammy. Was this the first time watch for you?
I believe so. If I did watch it with you maybe a long time ago, but
I think we watched it a long time ago, but it was a long time ago. It was definitely a refresh. So, go ahead.
I thought it was interesting. I wasn't sure really what to expect out of it. So it's like when you saw the first attack, it was just like, wow, what was that? Even you were asking what was it? Was that a fly or this or that or whatever? And it's like, I think that was a wasp, So it definitely is interesting, and then like you said about where this stuff comes from, and that lady with her, God has provided for us, and da 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 da. And it's like, oh boy, and she's not seeing anything wrong with this big ass killer chicken in her damn barn. It's like
all she knows is that whatever they found will make them money, and Mr. Skinner is off in some faraway land to make some money on the profit.
yeah, it's interesting. Let's just put it that way. I mean, when I came up with the theme for this month, I had I didn't remember about this movie or whatever. So, yeah, this was not something so far this month's been very interesting. Like the Black Sheep one too. It was just like, what?
That's what I was going for.
That one was great.
He could have chosen Zombievers.
Well, you did the Black Sheep one. It's like
Zombievers is probably much better.
How do you look at a lamb or a sheep and think it's gonna attack you? It's like. So this has definitely been an interesting month so far with the idea that I came up with. So
There's also Lamageddon.
Let's say, what would we do if someone had combined all of these ideas and we had like a giant genetically modified sheep that are trained to attack enemies and be like the perfect guard sheep, and you have someone who is like sort of
trained to stare at goats, like the men who stare at goats.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, exactly.
Indeed.
Alrighty, is that pretty much it then, Tammy, for you?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, we'll get into more stuff when we get in the movie.
Alrighty, heading over to you, Brandon. Was this a first time watch for you?
Oh no. Actually, oddly enough, my first experience with this movie is not that far off from Dustin's first experience. I mean, I had heard of it, but only in passing, because I used to look up a lot of stuff that would be cool to see on Mystery Science Theater. And this would have definitely done well on that. But when I was upgrading my copy of Frogs, because I had it on DVD, and I was like, I want to upgrade this to Blu-ray. This came with it, and I was okay with that. I watched both at the same time. It's been a couple of years back, so I thought it was fun the first time. The second time, I thought the concept was still pretty cool. It did drag at points for me, but that was all right. Overall, it was a decent film. I would rank it higher than a 4.6, though.
Yeah, I would rank it higher than that, too. I generally think that outside critics are often not very point-worthy when it comes, and truthful when it comes to how good a film is. And technically, this film was at one point in time rated the worst rodent movie ever by a top critic at one point in time. I forget the name.
Here's a great bit of trivia feeds right into that exact thing. One of the rat costumes would later be reused for the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Really?
Apparently.
Oh,
interesting.
Quality to quality.
The guy who survived the basic like fox hunt that they had in the very beginning, he actually starred as one of the characters in Masters of the Universe. I thought that was kind of interesting. The fact that he played one of the main offshoot characters, which is awesome because that was an awesome film.
Right.
I guess the reason why I tend to like this film, I'm not sure when I first actually saw this like in its full capacity, but I used to see bits and pieces of it on Schlock Theater back in the day, I've had a DVD of a copy of it for quite some time, and I actually had Bert Gordon as a friend up until his death. So I was able to talk to him a bit before he passed. But other than that, it's a highly enjoyable movie for me. I mean, he often used close-up shots on top of other screens, which it was always interesting. You could get away with it in black and white, but when it came into color and stuff like that, some tricks didn't look so well, but it was enjoyable for its time. So, that being said, this film starts out as a sports film.
Yeah, I know. Real quick. Brandon, I think, had made reference to this. I think you said it should have been on MST3K, or
Yeah, it should have been, in my opinion.
according to IMDb, this movie has been featured in the German television show Die schlechtesten Film aller Zeiten. I probably slightly mispronounced that, but which apparently translates the worst movies of all time, where two hosts show the movie while making fun of it. Has anyone seen that show? Because I don't know that I've even heard of it, but it sounds very similar.
No, it definitely sounds very similar to that of like MSTK.
I think watching this show, watching this movie with people mocking it in German probably would be pretty fun. Even if you don't know what they're saying, it would probably be fun.
Maybe. But like I said earlier, this Marjo Gortner ends up being like the main character technically. And he's a football player. And I guess him and a couple of buddies of his are gearing up for a football game, but they are told to go off on a relaxing hunting trip. So they do in upstate Canada. And in order to get to this island that they go to, they have to go by ferry. And so you see them go to this island, and they speak a little bit about. I guess Marjo. He kind of sort of spouts off about like what his father like always told him or whatnot while they're on their way over to the island. And so the next shot, we get them riding on horses, following some hounds, and it turns out they're following a baby Bambi, something without even any sprouts. So, which is why I think Marjo's character ends up stopping, but their friend is a little bit trigger happy, and is one of those that seems to not care how old something is, it's going to die, So he ends up running after it, but then he gets set upon by a flying fleet of what look like flies, but are apparently hornets. So what do y'all think about this very beginning shot leading up to this first victim?
It happens very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I actually missed the attack because I looked away from the screen for a moment.
Yeah.
Apparently, this is one of the first times we get Bert Gordon's classic. Okay, let's film these characters up against an already filmed segment of flying creatures to make the effect of the flying creatures better with the little bit of budget constraint that he can't exactly show it with. So, and then of course you see the bug on top of him, and then dude's dead like in seconds, and then the friend comes over and he's like, "Oh, he's dead? The fuck? Okay, now we gotta go and find help." So him and his friend end up going off in search of a telephone, but you're out in the middle of nowhere. This is an island. Do you really think you can find a telephone on this island in any way, shape, or form? No. But he does anyways.
Well, they know there are houses on the island, so they expect there to be phones.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's kind of an expectation from all outsiders, but I guess let's see what is Marjo's character's name in here? Just looking real quick. Okay, his name is Morgan.
Right.
Okay, so Morgan ends up finding his way to and on a farm, and lo and behold, he gets into a cockfight with a giant.
And yeah, I gotta call. There were several things in this movie where I had to call BS. Him not getting eviscerated by that chicken very quickly, I gotta call BS on that.
I kind of do too, because we used to have a pet rooster
Yeah,
a long time ago when I was like a teen, and that thing, it got to about 3 feet tall. It was pretty vicious, surprisingly so. And it had like big like thorns like on its legs too.
not to mention there were how many hens in that same barn, and they're not exactly peaceful either, at least under certain conditions. They'd be probably less likely to attack the way that rooster did, but they're
There's kind of a funny story with that too. When we first got it, it was my brother's chicken, and it was one of those, little kid hatch a chick at school like projects. Let him take it home, and we kept it in a spare aquarium tank just because we didn't have anything else for a while there. And so it would be in this aquarium, and we would stop the cat whenever we would catch this happening, but the cat would be just like sitting outside the tank, like looking at it, and would like take like swipes at the tank, like bapping the glass. And the chick would just be kind of like shivering in the corner, like afraid. And after a while, the chicken got big enough that we had to let it outside. And so Mom is the one who saw this, and this is the way she tells it. So we let the cat out, and we heard this sound, and I look up, and I see the cat is running like trying to run back into the house, and this huge chicken is just angrily chasing after it.
Oh yeah, I've seen the same thing. I've seen chickens go right after cats, like not even hesitating. It's crazy.
Yeah, chickens when they attack, they don't really care who they attack or what they attack. They'll just attack violently, if so.
Yeah.
Not to mention they are armed. I mean,
those spurs were serious. Like, our chicken's spurs were like 3 inches long by the time it stopped growing. Like, they were really big. Like, it was really kind of astonishing, honestly. Like, I was very surprised by how like tough of a creature it actually was.
Well, Morgan seems to be more than just a football player, as he takes a pitchfork and literally stabs the chicken to death.
He's also a narrator.
Yeah.
Yes.
he even does more things than MacGyver in it.
Actually, he does kind of turn into MacGyver as the movie goes on.
But in any case, he survives that.
Well, real quick on him. I had not actually known this, and now I'm fascinated. I'm going to have to look for this documentary. There's a documentary about that actor called Marjo.
Yes.
And it's an Oscar-winning documentary because apparently he was an ordained minister at the age of 4 on the revival circuit. And when he got fed up with it, he let a film crew follow him, and he basically did an expose documentary on revivalism. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. I want to see this now. But he never fully made it as an actor, but if nothing else. But the fact that he meets this ultra-religious woman who believes that this is just a gift from God because they're such good people, it adds a great little underlying, like, did they intentionally cast him for that? Or is it just happy casting. I don't know.
Don't know, but I also knew that about the actor, and he basically kind of just befriended his whole religion, like in that documentary. It's kind of like a mockumentary, from what I understand.
Well, I guess no. Mockumentary is you're just kind of funning. You know, you're not. You're acting. You know, it's actors. Like this was more of
Real.
from what I understand, it was more of almost an expose sort of thing than, you know, like, which is really kind of cool, you know. But
I would love to track down the documentary just to watch it, just to see what it was all about myself.
Right.
But Morgan here, he runs into Mrs. Skinner, which apparently her husband is off trying to sell this $1 million profiting thing that he has found because they think that the way these creatures have turned into quite large sizes could be beneficial to the world in that sense.
They want to share their blessing, basically.
Correct. But he's there technically to try to find a telephone, and she comes first. She comes out at him with her shotgun as if she's going to blow his head off. But then she's all friendly and is like, "Come here. I want you to see what this is, and so that you could agree with me what this is." So he comes in, and she shows him these holes that apparently rats have made, and that just shows that this woman has not exactly made sure her house is very cleanly and free of vermin. So, because of course, you would have to think, because she and her husband live on this island, they're kind of a couple of older hicksters that live off the God-forsaken fat of the land and thank God for it every single day.
And they clearly bonded over a shared love of flannel.
Right? So we do have that moment where okay, they realize, okay, these rats might have actually gotten out and whatnot, might have actually gotten into the feed, which she shows him there's the stuff, and then there's the feed, and she's like, the chickens won't have the stuff unless we actually put a little bit of the feed in. You know, so that but the chickens apparently love the stuff and all that jazz. Well, since he can't really do much there anyways, Morgan goes off with his friend back over the ferry, and I guess you see him on the field after either playing a game or getting ready to for a game, and apparently they've heard back from the. I love how his friend tells him that their friend had died from what looks like over 250 hornets.
Yeah, he got quite a lot of hornet venom in those things, which they think it's from. You know, it would have taken like hundreds of like normal hornets to do that. But because they're giant hornets, I bet there were probably only like 10 or 20.
Well, I mean, it showed one just sticking to his back, and just, although maybe it was meant to be more than one. It's kind of hard to say for sure, but
it was one of the kind of worst done effects, honestly.
Yeah, these were the old school murder hornets, I guess you might say. The
true murder hornets.
I know, Dustin, you're probably very familiar with this concept, but I hear this a lot in like videos where they're talking about venomous animals and whatnot. where oftentimes the amount of venom that an animal can deliver can be even more important than the actual venom itself. And certainly, if a hornet is enough to send some people into anaphylaxis, a hornet that's 50 times the size, 40 times, however what big the magnification was, that's theoretically 40, 50 times the venom being injected from one sting. That's going to, if one would turn certain people, would make most people swell locally, I'm pretty sure that would trigger anaphylaxis in most people. Probably worse if you're even a little bit allergic. But, yeah.
Well, meanwhile, there are some other characters that we are introduced to. One being Mr. Skinner, which he's apparently trying to gauge like what the fuck is going on like locally, because apparently the only person that he can talk to is the ferry captain, to so that maybe he can tell him like the lowdown of whether he's heard anything weird go on, you know. So I think he tells him about the dude who was stung by the hornet, and that and I think that's pretty much it that he was able to tell him about. And then, of course, I think we're also introduced to a couple of campers. One of them being pregnant.
I don't think he said anything about a hornet sting. I believe
that's after we are introduced to these characters.
Right.
But
I mean, like you're talking about his conversation with the ferry captain. I think he was told that the guy had a bad fall, and I seem to remember just saying they said that, but I don't really believe it. You know, I don't know.
But we are introduced to a couple of campers in a Winnebago. One of them being pregnant, and you know. Just for the sake of having something bad happen in nature, you know, nature calls, and eventually it does call later on. But you got that couple stranded, I think, because one wheel is like sunk in an area, and then I think that's when we are introduced to the guy who is actually coming to meet Mr. Skinner and buy something. He doesn't know what it is. He just knows that there's money in it. So the couple end up trying to flag him down for help. He just continues on. His cohort,
yeah, it's not really clear what she is. Like, she's like his assistant or like a scientist who works for whatever his company is. Or it's not exactly.
She's more like his assistant and media type person or whatnot.
There are times where she's pretty much like acts as she's the fellow like on basically his equal. So it's very possible that it's more of a junior, I guess, his junior.
Yeah, and she's also the love interest in the story. So,
well, not for him.
Well, not for him. Eventually, for Morgan later in an awkward situation.
No, it wasn't at all.
It made sense. I thought I didn't think that was too weird.
When they're in a cabin attacked by rats, all of a sudden she turns to him and tells him, "I want you to make love to me." That's not weird.
Well, I mean, they think they're gonna die. I mean,
yeah. If there's nothing for it, if your only thing you're looking at is being chewed to death by rats, you might as well have a little fun first.
Exactly.
Okay, so Morgan just turns to Miss Skinner as like, okay, let's do this. You're going to be watching. Okay.
I mean,
But
they're alone in
anyways,
the attic. I mean,
going backwards,
Seriously.
the the money dude, he definitely shows his colors right away because he did not help those campers out, and just continued to go forward. And it's about this time that I believe Morgan and his friend actually return to the island because they're concerned about what's going on and they want to get down to the bottom of it. Um, and so our heroes end up back on the island, and uh, you know, I believe that they end up at, or I think it, yeah, they do actually run into the campers, stop, try to ask them if they need any help, and they say, I think what they say is that they're going to be okay. And then at this point, I think is when I think Mr. Skinner actually takes and goes in his little red Volkswagen, and he's supposed to be returning home that night, and he gets besought on by rats, and there's blood, and you see him get dragged away. I thought that was cool effect.
Alive. Like, it's pretty graphic. Like, I was surprised how graphic it was, honestly.
Well, it's the 70s. Blood is allowed.
Well, this is kind of it's kind of the period with the beginning of that, really. So that did kind of catch me off guard, just how nasty that death was. I mean, I was all for it. It was just kind of jarring.
It was pretty gruesome. I mean, it and honestly, it dragged really long, that scene. To be honest, for what it was. I mean, I thought they could have cut it like in between that just a little bit, but you know, I'm all for gore and everything like that. They definitely seem to want to make sure that it was a gruesome scene. So, that being said, okay, so Mr. Skinner then dies, but no one knows it yet. And then I think Morgan is the first one that that ends up showing up at the Skinner place. Or wait, no. Trying to think, because
Well, the beginning of this movie moves along pretty quick, to the point where it gets kind of difficult to know where you're at in it. Like our football guy and I guess his like talent scout immediately go out to investigate like the death, and that's when they run into like the couple in the camper who is like, "Nah, we'll be fine here," even though they're still they're panicking about having seen the giant rats, which will be our main villain in this story.
Yeah.
Like the night before, it's like, why do you want to stay? That's nuts. And so anyway, they get to the farm, and they start asking questions about the food, and there's an exchange where I can't for the friggin' life of me remember what the dude's name is all of a sudden, but he thinks they're like a competing company. It's like, yep, we're sure here checking something out. And he's like, oh yeah, well I have exclusive rights. It's like, oh good, so you're the one that will hold responsible for this. I think murder too, probably. He's like, hey, wait a minute. After flexing, it's like, it's mine, I own it. It's like, well, okay.
Yeah, Bensington. I think was it Jack Bensington, I guess.
Bensington?
I think so. Yeah, and
it moves so quick. They say this guy's name's like one time, and then
he's only there to protect his investment. Although Mrs. Skinner plainly says, "Not until my husband gets back and says it's okay," So
she's so nuts. Like it's wild.
Yeah, I did like that exchange where the where Morgan's just straight up telling him, well, okay, so you're the guy we're going to, take to court or whatever. And then Lorna really, she kind of gets the hots for him there, I think. She's like, ooh, he's telling this guy off. It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was like, criticizing him earlier for it's like, do you have to be such a jerk all the time?
Right.
Like, oh, finally somebody stood up to him, kind of
And
thing.
apparently, Pamela Franklin plays Lorna. This was her last movie, apparently.
Oh,
But
really?
she had a lot of TV shows that came after, like a lot of, for at least the next few years. Yeah. I don't know why she stopped. Anyway.
But yeah, and I think what ends up happening is Morgan and his other friend decide to go off in search of. Oh, that's right. There are some hornets that end up showing up at the Skinner place, and so after fending off the hornets. They do go out in search of the hornet's nest that is apparently somewhere nearby, and a football player knows exactly where it is.
Well, you get the feeling that this. I mean, yeah, he's a football player, but he does seem to be really like outdoorsy. Like he knows a lot of stuff.
Plus,
for no apparent reason whatsoever.
In fairness, it's kind of hard to miss.
It is a very, very big wasp nest, yes.
Yeah, but I'm not sure exactly that I would stick my hand up in the fucking thing.
Oh no.
Did he really do that? Because I must have missed that.
He leaned inside, reached up his arm, and put whatever bomb, Molotov, whatever the fuck he put in that. Because,
I missed that part.
Yeah, he really reached inside.
Well, they set it on fire and it explodes. They had to have done like dynamite or something in there.
It was like homemade Molotovs.
Okay.
Like jars with like with rags and gasoline that they stuck up inside the hive. So I was watching him put his hand in there, and I was like, okay, that's one spot that I would not stick my hand in. My arm would probably have a ton of stings, but they end up running to some cover, and the thing explodes, and well, that kills the wasps. But now we apparently have a rat problem. So,
luckily there was just that one nest of the wasps too, which I think at some point between those scenes, I think we get the explanation, a bit more of an explanation of how the stuff works. So the food of the gods will make things into giants, but only if fed to young animals.
Right.
Like
it doesn't do anything to
no
the old
effect on adults.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything to the old ones.
I appreciated that part of the story in that whatever this stuff was, it did have rules and limitations. Like it wasn't just like a biologic. It wasn't like the pathogen from freaking Aliens or
Although
Prometheus, right? That's what I was looking for. Prometheus.
They do dangle one weird question in front of the audience and don't answer it, which is how is there's obviously too old, but is there too young? Like they have a pregnant character, but they don't even so it kind of puts that
utilize her as part of the story, or baby as part of the story.
It puts that idea in front and center though, and then doesn't answer it. So
there is a really upsetting, like messed up like moment like later, and that's kind of the only thing that really happens with the baby. It's like jumping ahead slightly, she's in such a panic that she goes into labor early and like gives birth to the baby. And there's a line that's like, "Oh God, is my baby gonna be born just to get eaten by rats?" And it's like, it was very fucked up and awful when you really think about it. Like,
Well,
God,
it also is a logical question in that circumstance.
I mean, yeah, it is. It's just at the same time, it's like they wouldn't show us that, right? Because
Well,
not been shy about violence for a while. So there were a few seconds where I was like, yeah, before kind of getting back to my senses.
oh yeah. So yeah. So we have that apparent couple that is in the middle of the road. And they think that they're all okay, but then they get set upon by rats. And I do think that there is oh, we noticed that the rats have actually eaten all the chickens.
Yeah, all the chickens are killed by the rats off camera, which was I think that would have been really, really difficult to do, like effects wise at the time. And even later when we're seeing like, them, shoot rats, like I don't know how they're doing that. Do they have like little like puffballs of?
I'm almost wondering if there were any animals killed during production.
There weren't really rules about that in the 70s yet. So
the trivia on IMDb said that they used like a high pressure of like color dye, basically.
that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just looked like they were really being gutted whenever they were shot off the porch during that Night of the Living Rat scene.
To me, it looked like they were being hit by teeny tiny paintballs. So that's what Jake's describing.
Now, the thing I thought that looked really neat about the rats was when you saw the swarms, especially when they were setting up the electric fence, and you could just see them like because you had like the water, which was one of the ways that they took them out. But the fact is they were a river of rats unto themselves, and the way they flowed was just that right there did up the intimidation factor. If the movie wasn't cheesy as heck, I would have said that would have probably scared me the most if I was easily frightened.
And honestly, I thought it was an experimental in what you could do with rats in general, because they found out that rats could actually like drown in the water and not,
There was I was really impressed with their explanation for that, because right away one character was like, well, wait, rats can swim just fine. And then we get the explanation that it's like, well, normal rats can, but these suddenly weigh hundreds of pounds. Like I bet they have to learn to swim all over again. Like if they try to swim like they normally would, they just sink like bricks. And he ended up being right. And I thought that was biologically a really interesting question. It's like, what if an animal that when it swims, it depends on its like buoyancy from being very light? What if that thing suddenly weighed, many hundreds of times more? Like it would probably be so confused when it would just do its like instinctive swimming and it just wouldn't work. You know what I mean? What do you think about that, Jake?
I missed that explanation, but it does make sense. Like, I don't know how I missed it, but
it was really quick when they were setting up the electric fence.
Yeah.
He just kind of rattled it off real quick. Like it was very easy to miss. But I was sitting there listening to that and I was like, oh wow, how would that work? That's really clever. So I was pretty happy with that, because there was a little bit of like decent science in here.
Oh, much better than Willard knew about rats when it came to water.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned Willard, because there is a white rat that they figured out that was the leader, and that could have very much been Socrates.
Yes, this one was trying to revenge Socrates.
Did they say that it was the leader? Because it seemed like you see this albino rat in like the big pack of rats a few times, and they never really, unless it killed Mr. Skinner in that scene, they never really showed it.
Right, actually say that they think that the white rat is the leader.
Ah, okay. I missed that piece of dialogue now. So
Yeah, that was actually
funny.
said in the dialogue by them, and I think it was that buddy of his before he got eaten himself in that jeep of his when he was trying to save Morgan from doing stupid shit because he got outside the vehicle when they should have just kept on going.
Well, the rats blocked the road. They had to try and clear that, but they were very quickly ambushed, so they probably should have seen. I think they did see it coming, but they probably should have been a little bit more on guard at the very least.
They stopped the vehicle way before the rats even were there, so I think they could have.
Well, I mean, it did show that the rats were there the entire time, just hiding in the tree line.
But
so if they stopped at all, the rats were just gonna like, rah.
The friend was killed, and then they go back to the Skinner cabin for a last stand, and that's when earlier Mrs. Skinner actually got bitten by these larva-looking creatures. I forgot to mention.
Yeah,
like big mealworms or grubs or something
like maggots, basically, or at least that's what I was thinking. Like,
which you can get bitten by maggots. That was a really disgusting sequence. Like
it was, and it was also kind of like, are you kidding me? Why are you not jerking your hand away right away? And I was reminded of the scene in Frankenhooker where the woman was standing in front of the push lawnmower and couldn't get out of the way of a push mower. You know,
Wait, when did you watch Frankenhooker?
Brandon showed it to us.
Oh, damn.
Oh yeah, that old chestnut.
Well, didn't Joe Bob play that this year too, or somewhat recently?
Frankenhooker was just one of those classic movie masterpieces of modern times.
It's one of those things where naturally Brandon is attracted to it, like, say, Moth to a Flame or Rats to Cheese or what have you, you know? It's like you see something called Frankenhooker, yes.
If you want to distract the rats, just throw some cheese out the window. That's all you got to do. Of course, maybe it was the cheese on the inside of the cabin that the rats were attracted to. But
isn't
anyway.
cheese bad for rats? Like, doesn't it actually like low key kill them?
I don't think it's good for them. No, I could be wrong, but
regardless, rats and mice have always been depictioned in cartoons and reality with cheese for millennia. And in fact, humans, put cheese on the mouse traps in order to catch the mice. So,
I think,
but is it because it's actually is it because it's actually something that they get into, or because of, like you said, the cartoons?
Well,
it is something that has been effective in catching rats and mice in mice traps for years. So.
Well, it is a valid question of whether it's a preferential thing.
Exactly.
And certainly in terms of is it I would say it's almost certainly not good for them. I'm pretty sure any sort of pasteurized dairy is of debatable health for pretty much anything, humans included.
Is that I thought doesn't it do something to their blood?
It may be.
Not sure.
The exact thing I read a really long time ago, we're talking like elementary school, was that cheese overheats their blood.
I don't think I've heard that. Could be.
I mean, it might. There's a pretty solid chance it's not true, but at the same time, it's
right.
It was one of those like little "can you solve the mystery" like detective books. So I would think that the information on that would have to be at least reasonably researched, because it's supposed to be like a brain teaser thing off of like stuff you already know.
Of course, I'm sure Dave and Brandon can agree with this, that for at least our generation, we look at the effect cheese has on Monterey Jack, and think of that as the species as a whole.
Well,
cheese does
I
that.
know,
I thought about that for a while.
I know hamburgers do not taste any better without cheese to me. So even though I know cheese does not do anything for my culinary.
Burgers are better with cheese. Not better for you, but they are better.
The only reason why I ever-
Just like many things are better with bacon, even though it's not better for you, many things are better with bacon.
Yeah, I will say that that burgers are the only real use for American cheese, in my opinion.
There is no real use for American cheese.
Because for some reason,
it's not
I
cheese.
think it's wrong to call it cheese, honestly.
It
That's
is. It's not cheese.
foul at best.
When you guys were talking about cartoons and everything else about the cheese and the mice and all that, it's also a misconception too that cats love saucers of milk. They really
Yeah.
cats
milk
do,
is-
however, love cheese.
Milk is bad for cats. I know I've
Right.
read that. Like,
that is bad for them, but yet you always see here's a saucer of milk,
yeah.
Again, I think that's from those old cartoons.
And again, cats don't always go what's for good for them. Spirit, one of my cats, for whatever reason, he likes to eat plastic.
Yeah,
I don't know why. It's not good for you. Eating plastic's not good for anything. But
I mean, I am sitting right next to Rosie here, and she will eat anything.
I'm not
Well, I
surprised.
did find out that our cats do like Alfredo sauce earlier.
Oh, really?
I tend to be one to play pranks on the cats just a little bit, but by anything that has to do with sauce, just a little dab on their nose just to see what they'll do. And
Don't do that with chocolate.
I tricked Diego with maybe sliming a bit of some Alfredo sauce on his paw so that he had nothing better to do but then lick it for some time. And then I proceeded to go and give some to little girl, and she loved it. So,
Good times.
In any case, back to the film. We are at the Night of the Living Rat scene where they're all trapped inside the Skinner cabin or house or whatever. And it's all boarded up, and they're trying to use whatever ammo they can to shoot their way out of the rats. But Morgan slash MacGyver decides to try to make some kind of explosive thing. And I guess Camper Dude kind of steps up to the plate and decides to help him so that they can
He takes over for his fallen friend there.
Yeah.
And I think that's when they come up with the idea to, they remember that Miss Skinner mentioned something about a dam. And so they leave the house. They fight their way out of the house after barricading it a little bit better to go try and blow the dam so that it'll flood the island. And it's kind of their only chance, I think, to get out of this. So that whole sequence is, and of course, the girls are left alone in the house, and the whole thing is just a nutty sequence. In a panic, the girl goes into labor, and meanwhile they successfully blow up the dam, but it seems like it takes a while to really take effect.
And it's Mrs. Skinner, she states that I'm not afraid of anything. As soon as my husband gets back, everything will be all right. And then 2 seconds later, she gets mauled by a rat.
Yeah, I did forget that. Eventually, she finally gets kind of what she's deserved all along, when one of the rats breaks through one of the barricades in the window, and she's able to chop it to death with her meat cleaver, but it still takes her out. So they kind of like die on top of each other.
Yep, and ultimately, the rats do eventually drown, and then, of course, Morgan and friends are getting attacked by the white rat, and this is strange because he is literally able to beat the rat to death with his musket or
Right.
you know, it's the weirdest fucking thing ever.
How hard was he hitting that thing?
I mean, this made me think that there was definitely an animal hurt in this whole thing. So, I don't know. It just, some of the shots make me think that maybe animals were injured a little bit more closer to norm. But ultimately, you know, it got the job done. Kanga till death. Okay, yeah. But then we see jars of this stuff floating down a creek.
I think we missed an important moment here.
Go ahead.
When Mr. Whatever the fuck gets taken out by the rats, when he's basically taking every container he can find and just cramming the stuff into it.
Oh yeah.
But then the other guy gets there and he starts destroying every container.
The slime ball.
Yeah, the dude's all getting all no, because he's dumping the stuff, and the look at his face, he was so.
You can tell, like,
when our hero acted with his look on his face and everything. Going, no.
Well, this is right after, like the guy that football hero came to the island with gets like chewed up by the rats. So you can tell he's pissed about that, and he's like, okay, nobody gets this stuff.
And I think
not be here.
And I think that this stuff is. I think that they really had the wrong idea for the stuff. You're not supposed to feed it to the animals and then raise the animals until you slaughter them. You feed the animals like normal, and then you take them to a special execution pen, and then you feed the stuff to them and execute them as soon as they grow that big. That way, you feed them as they're small, and then you take them out last minute for the actual feeding.
I'm almost starting to think, even though there is already a loosely based sequel to this movie, I think that there are relations in the movie The Stuff. It's in the family.
How about the food? The food of the gods is just this white goo literally bubbling out of a rock.
Yeah.
Like, what is
that?
I
mean, that's obviously something that The Stuff utilized. I think that they saw it. But that's the thing, is people tend to bar off of it. We were talking.
That was a Larry movie. He would have known Corman.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked off air about like J.K. Rowling looking at stuff like Worst Witch and stuff like that for Harry Potter. Of course, that's even more blatant. But people tend to take from different sources all the time. It's the way of thinking. It's the way of creativity, is being able to take something and kind of make it new. Or if you're Disney, take something and say it's live action and then print money.
A better example of borrowing, but for a more creative purpose. We were talking earlier, like how an interesting example of how Disney spent years trying to create their own Pixar film, and they finally did, was Zootopia. And then Pixar turned around and said, we can do it better. And then they tried to with Elemental. And it's debatable which one's better, but But, real quick, someone was talking about when Morgan was trying to dump all this stuff out and whatever, and the other guy was getting all upset or whatever. it wasn't just because he was angry and all that stuff. I think he was also just genuinely trying to keep it from leaving the island. Like he was trying to look out for the world at large at that point. Like, we need to make sure that this stays here. And you even hear it in his voiceover narration at the end, which perfectly sets up that really cool ending. But anyway, we'll get to that in a minute, I'm sure.
It's coming up, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think there should have been more fleshed out about what kind of character Morgan was outside of being a football player. Just a little bit.
Well, again, he was MacGyver. I mean, what more do you need?
Yeah, pretty much.
In any case, we do get the stuff traveling down a creek, and it does show that that it is it might possibly be drunk by cows and then go into the milk supply to regular average school day kids.
Well, we straight see it being eaten by the cow. But yeah, there's that strong implication that this little kid just had some of the stuff.
It would depend on how it cycles through the food chain, because
yeah,
I think it probably would have been diluted enough at that point that, I mean, maybe you'd feel sick, or maybe it would be poisonous, but I don't think it would do anything too crazy at that point.
Or maybe have no effect at all. I mean, yeah, it could. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, that ending was meant to be really ominous, but I was just I bet they'll be fine. I would have been surprised if anything.
Theoretically, the stuff could have even actually been a bacterium living in that fluid, and the pasteurization process could have killed it outright.
Yeah. Very good point.
But they seriously, though, this is just typical horror movie. We're going to put a stinger on the end to let you know the story might not be over.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I'm like, I can't believe they went there. That's awesome.
Alrighty. I think we are now at the production stage. So why don't we go into it? Let's start with you, Brandon. What did you think about production?
Well, for 76, I have certainly seen worse films. They did a decent job with what they had. Yeah, you could tell that that they weren't on the same soundstage as the animals several times, but certain things like how they were killing the rats, certain types of stuff like mostly the stuff with the rats, looked pretty darn good. I thought that they did a pretty convincing job there. And in general, it held okay. And like I said, there are definitely faker looking films that have been out.
Okay.
You can't knock any movie that has a giant chicken.
That's true. Oh, yeah, Brandon, were these in some way related to Herman?
Well, you'll never know because they killed him.
Yeah, that's too bad. So they probably brought down the wrath of Herman, though.
So
delayed, therefore we are.
Jake, what were your thoughts on production overall?
I mean, yeah, given the time period and what they had to work with, it was pretty solid. I mean, I'm not going to say that I think this movie should have really won any awards for the production. Not by any
It won one award. It won a Golden Turkey Award.
Okay.
Turkeys are good.
Yeah.
For being the worst rodent movie ever.
The worst rodent movie ever.
Yes.
That's saying something. That's like, but then again, that's like bragging rights. So I guess.
Yeah, bragging rights is right.
I don't. Yeah, it's not great. And definitely, I would say that the production is adequate at best. But again, given the time period and given what it was adequate. You know, and some of the cheesier aspects kind of helped with the enjoyment factor. You know, so yeah.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Tammy. What were your thoughts on production overall?
Uh, like everybody's been saying, for for the time that it was made, it was all right. I mean, we've seen better and we've seen worse, and um,
Is it better or worse than Bunny the Killer Thick?
better.
That's a fun.
Anything is
Much
better than
better.
that movie.
Loaded
Anything's better than
question.
that movie.
That movie was really terrible. Like, holy shit.
But anyways, um, I think I think it was pretty decent. I mean, you got to look at the imagination. That the for them to come up with the humongous chicken and the humongous wasp and and what were them wormy thingies that attacked that lady?
Oh, mealworms or whatnot. But you claim that they look like larvae.
Well, they did.
Well,
I think that we're talking something that was in the kitchen eating the food. They were almost certainly maggots. I mean, that's the only thing that really makes perfect sense.
But I mean, that's why I said I think it was all right for what they probably had to work with in their budget and everything. It's just, I think it was just, I think what made the production good was the imagination of trying to make these things overly sized. So.
Well, you didn't get the name of Mr. Big for nothing. So, anyways, heading over to you, Dustin. What were your thoughts on production overall?
I think most of the effects were fine, although the green screen stuff, a lot of it was really, really obvious, to put it politely. So I think that was maybe I think that was probably the movie's worst flaw, was that a lot of the creatures were not exactly believable as when they had to interact with people. I think the wasps probably looked the best because they weren't so oversized as to. You could make a model of that looked right, and in the proper scale. Whereas with like the rats and stuff, I mean, their fur was all slicked back, like they looked like soaked or something.
Well, one thing that I did get a kick out of was when you saw the rats on top of the camper. You could tell that it was probably just regular sized rats on top of a
model
camper.
Oh, and there was a scene like that with the cabin, and I actually thought that was kind of funny.
Very true. That's kind of what I'm referring to, actually, because there were, I mean, some of those shots, those were fine, but you could still tell it was a model. A couple of the shots, you had to maybe strain your eyes a little bit more, but it was still kind of eh. And then with the flooding and stuff, well, I don't know. Some of the scenes where the rats were actually drowning in the floods, that was pretty convincing to a degree, I thought. So, kind of a real mixed bag, honestly, with the effects on this. Because some of it worked, a lot of it it's like, I can forgive it because of the time period. But it certainly wasn't perfect.
I kind of have to agree with you, Dustin. It was definitely a mixed bag with everything. But for the production of its time, for probably the budget that it had, I can forgive a lot of it
Exactly.
for many different reasons. But I mean, the fact that it made me think that they actually killed some rats on set made the movie a little bit more likable for me because according to Jake here, they used like a specific dye for those kinds of ghosts. So I guess it was effective in that nature for me, and I'm glad that there were some bloody kills on screen. So more power to it. Because I do like a little gore in some of my in some of these features. Not a whole lot.
Yeah, the moments like that were very horrific. Like it was, well, like I said earlier, it was kind of shocking just how graphic some of that stuff got. I mean, even though it was just like, oh no, and they're covered in blood, they really sold it with like the ferocity of those attacks, with like the rat head puppets like just coming down after the actors. Like, damn, like it really worked quite well.
I thought it was interesting that they ended up having the female character being dropped into like that hole, and they had to fend for themselves once they got like to her and everything and whatnot. They tried their damnedest to make this movie as interesting as possible. So, the fact that they attempted to was impressive. So, other than that, let's go into music. So the music was actually done by Elliot Kaplan. I don't think it was stock footage music. And I guess he's done some stuff for Disney's The Rocketeer at one point. And I guess he was the lead composer for all of Fantasy Island, the original, with the plane.
You know, I've heard about that. I don't think I've ever actually seen that.
I believe you can find various episodes on a TV land from time to time. So it's very amusing. Oftentimes they pair it with like The Love Boat or something of that nature. And of course, they tried to reinvent it like a couple of years back. And they did a movie about it, which I don't actually think it was that bad. But
there was a Fantasy Island horror movie which got universally negative reviews.
I believe that's the one you're referring to, isn't it, Dave?
Yep, that's the one I was referring to.
Yeah.
That wasn't a horror show, was it?
No, the show wasn't. No, they did.
The show was more campy, and it was more along the lines of a luxury thing that kind of like an. I don't want to say it's an offshoot of Westworld, but it's in the vicinity of that type of fantasy world.
Okay.
Where you know you're a billionaire, and you want to have a fantasy of your own, and they end up giving you that fantasy in some way, shape, or form. You know, and I thought it was an interesting show for its time, but definitely it had some. Okay, he composed some music for Ripley's Believe It or Not for a little bit. He was a composer for a mini TV series called Voyagers, and I guess he did a couple of the 80s episodes in the Twilight Zone 80s thing, and did some stuff with Alfred Hitchcock. And one episode of the Tiny Toon Adventures. Good Lord.
Okay.
Had to put that in there for
So, what's going on?
Everyone suddenly lost their
Okay.
train of thought.
Sorry.
I never found it.
Well, I think there was thunder out and it messed with my mute button. So in any case, so let's go to favorite scenes and or favorite characters. So let's start with you, Tammy. What was a favorite scene and favorite character?
Okay. I guess the lady that was the assistant to the guy with the money, that wanted to buy the stuff. I guess she was my favorite character because she kept trying to be helpful all the way around, and trying to keep a level head. I think,
Are you talking about Lorna?
if that was her name. I think so.
She was a good character. I didn't remember her name either. But
Yeah, that was as far as favorite scenes, oh boy, there's just so many to choose from.
this one did have quite a lot going on in it too. Yeah.
I guess one of my favorite scenes is actually what I was talking about before with the rats all crawling all over the camper because it just, maybe when I was a kid I would have thought it was cool, but being as an adult I'm looking at it going, yeah, right. That's not a real camper. No. Okay. So I thought it was comical to me to see these rats crawling all over the camper when it's like that's just a toy and those are just regular rats.
Okay. Well, heading over to Brandon. Why don't you tell us favorite character and or favorite scene or scenes?
Well, I would say that my favorite character was the chicken. Just because, that chicken was awesome.
All hail to Herman.
All hail the giant chicken. And my favorite scene was where they finally flood the rats, which I think that was pretty cool.
Okay. Heading over to you, Dustin. Favorite scene or scenes or favorite character?
It is kind of hard to pick just one favorite because, as long as this movie could feel sometimes, there was really so much going on. There was a lot to appreciate. I think I would have to go with probably our main character just because of some of those biological observations. I think those are probably some of my favorite moments. So if I had to pick, I'm going to be a little weird and just pick those little digressions where it's okay, here's how we blow up the nest, or here's why I bet they'll drown. That stuff was very interesting to me. And so I would go with him as my character and just those little explanations of what the hell is going on moments. Because it felt like there was actually some decent thought put into the biology in this, and that's always something I really appreciate.
Okay. Heading over to Jake. Did you have a favorite scene or scenes, or did you have a favorite character from this movie?
When I swear out charges with the district attorney, I'll know who to name. What the hell are you talking about? second-degree murder. I guess that's what they'll call it. My friend was killed by your wasps yesterday afternoon. They're not my wasps. Well, if you own the stuff that made them grow, I guess you're liable for whatever they do. That whole interchange kind of cracked me up. I thought that was really good.
That was
Coming
great.
from a Bible thumper, yes.
Yeah. It's and there, you know, Dustin was just talking about what a good biologist Morgan was, but there he proved he was a pretty good lawyer. You know,
really multi-talented, yeah.
Yes. So I don't know. I'm tempted to say Morgan would be my favorite character because he was, but I don't know. In a sense, he was such a Mary Sue that it was a little overmuch. My usual tendency is to go for the really cute girl, and Lorna was definitely cute. And I was amused by we talked before about her propositioning Morgan because they might die at any moment, and it was an odd request, but kind of a fun one. I did like the way that she kind of she was willing to give Jack what for while still working for him, you know, like, but not just blindly being his servant, you know what I mean? So I do kind of like, I think I would say them, but I'm going to give a honorary mention to the Skinners just because they did both amuse me. So we'll go with that. It's the power of the flannel, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, me, any man who calls himself a football player and then outdoes MacGyver by sticking his hand in a hornet's nest and fighting with a cock for no reason because he opened up the door and saw this giant chicken. He had to step in and fight with it instead of just shutting the door and moving on. He fought with it. So, I guess it almost ending up with a girl who wants to have sex with him at like an awkward time, and of course he takes it to an explosive moment and drowns the rats and ends up being the hero of the day. Yeah, he's my favorite character. So my favorite scene is when he sticks his hand up the hornet's nest. I've never seen that in any other movie. I don't even want to be that guy sticking my hand up there, but it will always be memorable for me. Giant fucking hornet's nest, no fucking way, not going to be anywhere near me. But yeah. At the end of the day, did anyone else have anything else to add? Alrighty, so let's go around and tell the audience a little bit about who we are and what we do. So let's start with you, Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I am Kotobukijake. I am the sometime co-host of SeptumSin versus the World, and we have lately been on a mad dash to get ready for the Versus Awards coming soon to a stream near you. And we'll be definitely been, like I said, working hard on that. And then we'll probably get back to our regularly scheduled programming at some point in the not too distant future. I've been, other than that, I just, I keep very, very busy with this, that, and the other thing, reading, watching. I know we also have an anime discussion coming up this week on Lupin the Third. Is it Red versus Green or Green versus Red? I can never remember.
Versus Red.
What day is that
Yeah.
happening?
Wednesday, theoretically.
Okay, then I still gotta watch it.
Right. Well, it's definitely a quick and fun watch, so it's worth doing. And then in addition to work, I actually took the weekend off. I am a member of the Virginia Native Plant Society, and the annual meeting was in Harrisonburg. So I went up there for a few days and got to see the sites, got to see a lot of really cool stuff, some globally rare plants, some newts, a bunch of fun stuff. And made it up into West Virginia briefly, just for shits and giggles. And but now I'm back to the grind. But I always try to make time to watch, at least one film a week, so I can join these fine folks. And this was an interesting visit, an interesting film to add to the list. So yeah. That'll do it for me for this go round.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Tammy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I go on this channel and another one with David and talk about movies with everybody and listen to their opinions and check out movies most of the time that I have never seen before. So it's quite fun, and I have my own collection. And well, the summer is winding down, so otherwise in the summer I like to take out my car to the car shows, but that this weekend is probably going to be just about it. So, but on a happy note, my car club's having their big picnic, and we get our check presented for the Make a Wish that we did earlier this year. So that's a nice high point.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Dustin. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I collect and review horror movie stuff here in Milwaukee. I have a channel for my stuff that I'm slowly making more content for. I haven't been able to release anything yet, but after I finish with this kind of big issue I'm having with life stuff, I should have some new videos finally ready for you guys. And I also have an Instagram for the horror collecting, the Crypt of Horrors. Oh, by the way, that's the channel name, which I somehow forgot. So on the Crypt of Horrors Instagram, I think some of my pickups that aren't maybe large enough to do a video for, I think I'm going to start using the Instagram as a placeholder for some of those, because I had like a really cool like Heavy Color shirt haul from last year, and there just hasn't been any ability to shoot a video for it. But then I realized I only need to take like 5 or 6 pictures of like the different designs I got. So that'll be up on the Crypt of Horrors Instagram pretty soon. You can also find me as Cryptaxis on Twitter, where I hang out way too much. And yeah, you can hear me just kind of ramble about whatever on there. I'm also on Letterboxd as Cryptaxis, and I have been more active there with logging the stuff I watch. So come check me out, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And with that, I'm going to personally sign off, because I got to get going.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. And over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing? I hear you're quite busy.
SeptumSin versus the world. It's pretty much all about the Versus Awards. Jake had told us about anime stuff, so I'm not gonna worry about that. But yes, next Monday at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time, I plan on premiering that particular show. It may end up overlapping with this one. I'm hoping not. I think that within 3 hours it'll come out, but I haven't finished editing, so expect a large editing frenzy from this point until Monday. I've got 99% of the video, and I thank everybody who has participated, Dave and Jake included here, and of course everybody that's listening that may have participated. We had a lot of people involved, and there's a lot of moving parts, and I think I got most of the marbles in my stuff. I just got to keep them from rolling away until I can clamp them down and edit them.
Alrighty. And my name is David Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous journey we've been having. I'm glad I killed that cock today, but that being said, I think we all have a little fun here on this podcast, and hopefully you enjoyed the discussion on the movie and getting to know a little bit about our thoughts, whatnot. But I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where I also go on periodically on Sundays of all days to go on and discuss films of all natures too. And I do believe that Forrest is subjecting us to another Japanese horror flick. I believe it's Ringu Kanzenban.
Huh.
Variation of the original Rings series, and I guess it's more truthfully an adaptation to, I guess, the original book. So I guess we'll see what's up with that. But we'll also I do some video pickups and some video reviews from time to time on the channel. So definitely come check that channel out. Check out Inside Movies Galore. And also, eventually, we will be getting back to editing the second feature in the Tales of the Forgotten series. But I as well am kind of caught up in an editing mess of my own so that we can get the Versus Award that's out. Hopefully be able to get done with it by the end of this week, and so that the final pieces can be put in place. So hopefully you will be able to tune in to the Versus Awards and find out, do I really research Christopher Nolan's basement? So on that note, everyone say good night.
Good night.
Good night. And don't let the bed bugs on this island bite. All right.